Good afternoon, everyone. It's Aniva Menon from hearthealthbrainhealth.com, encouraging healthy grieving and mindful actions. Today, my thought process and contemplative time has been all about awakening. And you know that a lot of my spiritual journey in recent years has been because of my own awakening. And I believe that awakening happens to many, many people, sometimes with their conscious awareness and sometimes not consciously. But we're all going through different processes that are helping us evolve, right? But one of the speakers that I used to listen to a lot in the past is someone named Alan Watts. And I don't know if you've heard him before, but he actually speaks in a very tongue in cheek sort of manner, which is just my style. So I thought I'd start today's video with one of his quotations. This quotation says, "When one speaks of awakening, it means de-hypnotization, coming to your senses. But of course, to do that, you have to go out of your mind." So I'm sure I'm not making this sound very flowery about awakening, but it is interesting. Even though, again, this speaker definitely is jokey about this process, and it is laughable when you've gone through it and can kind of look back at it. Oftentimes, in the middle of an awakening experience, it's not so easy. So, people I know can be going through the least easy times of their lives when awakening moments happen or awakening happens. And it's not so easy. And some people have asked me of why would awakening be not easy? Like it just sounds like so good to finally wake up from something. And that's the concern too, right? So as much as it is a joy to suddenly become aware of something and awakened to a truth. You'll notice if you ever go through this experience or if you look at your own life, and maybe you're in this process now, but maybe you can think back to a time that you might have felt this way. Oftentimes, a person feels very not stable. So, in that awakening time, often what's happening is we feel like everything that we know or knew, suddenly it's the exact same information, or sometimes we have some new information, but it's kind of the background awareness of, I kind of knew this, and suddenly you can't deny it. So, again, I work with people with all sorts of grief, as you know. So sometimes it's because of a death of someone close in the family or a relationship. Sometimes it's the death of the actual relationship. So, of course, divorces or separations definitely lead to these sorts of times. And sometimes it's a loss of a job, a home. Any of these experiences can lead to an awakening. Some people work towards awakening through spiritual work, and that's also possible. I think, in terms of having something not so easy happen in life that brings a person to this space, which is how mine happened, it's not like we're trying to plan for it, but there is kind of an order to the universe, is what I believe. There's a certain direction for our lives, and sometimes we are supposed to become awakened to things. And there's a certain part that I believe, at least, the soul has a journey here in this life existence, and the soul is directing us towards the right things for our own evolution. So I'd love for you to think about that today. I came across a quotation by Eric Hoffer that I really enjoyed, because I do notice that most people are extra shaken up by this sort of awakening experience because it's not so easy to be light and playful in it. There's such an awareness. So some people might cry or be very sad, or might even fall into depression for some people. Some people might sleep more. Some people might be angry, right? So all of the things that you might think about with grief. But this happens. So then his quotation here says, "The creative mind is the playful mind. Philosophy is the play and dance of ideas." Now, why would I bring this up with awakening? Oftentimes, when people go through an awakening, they become philosophical about life experiences. And in that philosophical time, there is a playfulness too. There's just kind of a, I understand things in this sort of way. It's a very interesting experience to go through. And certainly the people that I've spoken with have gone through this experience. I've seen this change, and I've certainly noticed it in my own self. And of course, the timing is different for each person. So some person might not link it to their awakening time because they'll think, no, well, I always wanted to play the guitar, but I finally got to it because now I have time to. And it's true, but everything takes a little bit of time to build up to. And oftentimes, there's some switch that's happening in the mind through awakening processes, which allows this playfulness and creativity to come back out or to come forth from a person. So I wanted you to think today for 5 minutes after this video about, have you experienced things like this? Have you noticed something in your life where you think, yeah, but it was just because, it took time to get over, this grief that I was going through, this loss that I was going through. And when I got through that loss, and I just feel better because that time's done and more time has passed. And I'm going to tell you, it's not time that does it. There is some transformation that you've gone through because of a loss. So I'd love for you to think for 5 minutes just about that. Have you noticed any moments of transformation where you may or may not have had, this significant drop of energy or not being able to think clearly or that sort of idea? But you might actually remember maybe you have gone through that. I think that many people are going through this regularly, but again, like I said originally, either consciously or not consciously. And finally, I wanted to end with this beautiful quotation, which doesn't have an author, but I think it really does represent what I believe, and I hope that it will plant a seed for you too. It says, the ego wants quantity, but the soul wants quality. The ego wants quantity, but the soul wants quality. So if we think that if someone is going through an illness and they pass away, of course the ego would be like, I so want them to be alive. But the soul wants the person to be alive if there's a quality of life most often, right? Similarly with a relationship, if a relationship is losing its life, we'll say, the ego wants it to last longer. It wants it to look at it in a particular way. Or maybe I'll look at it this way, and maybe I can learn to live with this and that sort of energy. And that's the ego. And the soul wants quality. How can I make this beautiful for myself? Is how the soul is speaking. So I thought I would leave you with that today, and I hope those thoughts are planting a seed for reflection for you today. I wish you a fantastic day ahead, and I hope you remember, transform your mind and transform your life. Have a great day, everyone.